Um, I think I want to start talking about this. I've divided my talk into three different sections. The first section will be about paintings that I have loved and enjoyed. And again, I have to tell you that and the second session is about on music, and the third I hope will be on poetry, though there'll be, a kind of intermingling here and there. The thing about paintings is that, see, it's very difficult to compress what you have seen through your life within, half an hour, 50 minutes. And my choice has been very random. I hope to give an example of different kinds of paintings that I've enjoyed at different phases of my life. So I want to start with the oldest, which is from Bhimbetka, which are the caves, rock shelters and caves in Madhya Pradesh in central India. They belong to all the ages, the Paleolithic age, the Mesolithic age, as well as historical times. This is one of the oldest places with walls and floors which have been occupied by human beings, hold your breath, for 100,000 centuries. And not just one or two. I mean, mind boggles at the thought of it, right? And this exhibits the earliest traces of human life in India and the oldest known rock art in India and in many parts of the world. There are 7 hills over which there are 750 rock shelters. You can see only a few of them as a kind of a 10-kilometer circumferential area. And some of these it has been said that they provide, I have seen it myself, so I can assure you that it is true, that they provide a rare glimpse into human settlement and the cultural evolution of human beings, first as hunter-gatherer tribes, and later when they settle down to agricultural pursuits, and finally, as they searched for, or actually parallelly, not finally, parallelly, as they searched for a kind of spirituality which even the primitive human beings had felt. Ruku had spoken about spiritual pursuits. Spiritual pursuits have always been with us from the time we were human beings. Now, some of these cave paintings are about 10,000 BCE, they say, but nobody is really very sure. And they show animals, dance, hunting, all the pursuits that these people were engaged in. And you'd be really amazed to know that they were discovered, like so many different things, for the modern eye, by a British official who had gone into the dense jungles of central India for tiger hunting. And then much later in 1957, a man called Wakankar went and actually saw them and realized their significance as paintings and as prehistoric culture, civilization, and so on. Now, I have chosen 2 paintings. It was breathtaking, when I drove from Bhopal to go to see this place. It's in a kind of a beautiful rocky setting with wonderful flowers. And when I went, I saw magnificent flowers on trees, white and yellow flowers. The whole area looked so romantic and wonderful. And I really felt I'd gone into a different era altogether. And to see these paintings on the walls, looking as if they've been drawn today, it is an experience that I think all of you must have. Can we see the second picture also? See, you saw the first one. What interests me is the fact that they have not shown individuals, but collective groups all through, So people had to live together in order to survive in those days. There was no individual, existence in isolation. It was not possible at all. Now, the 3 questions that were sent to me by IMF for this talk were actually very interesting, though very basic. Why should teachers be sensitive to art? What can we experience from art? And how does art influence our lives? And there is an answer from these prehistoric paintings, because unless we are sensitive to art, we cannot bond together as human beings. That's what the prehistoric paintings seem to tell us. And what can we experience from art? That's something that we will have to find out in our own lives and through the journey in this particular talk. I hope it will I will be able to share my experience of how I experience art. What can we experience from art? See, everyone should be sensitive to art, not only teachers, because art helps us to make sense of life, to understand others, to stand in other people's shoes. There is a wonderful philosopher, modern philosopher, who said that you can understand your experience alone. You cannot understand the experience of others, because what you know about the experience of others is what they're sharing with you through words, paintings, sculpture, whatever it is, different means. How can you know them? How can you get into them? How can you enter their minds? The only way is through art. Because when you're watching this, when you're looking at this painting, what are we doing? We are entering into their lives, trying to imagine what they thought of, what they faced, what dangers, what difficulties they faced. So you see, I think that is the significance of art, really, that it enables us to jump into another person's mind and understand that person's experience, not just thoughts and feelings, that person's experience as your own. When you read a book, you become that character, don't you? You go back into that world. But you may be reading a Russian book, a book from France, a book from South Africa. Then you go into those lands, in that age, in that space, in the mind of the people you're reading. You become that person. So this, I think, helps us to understand people in real life. This is so simple. And one more thing which I think is very important. Yes, this is the brilliant cave paintings from Argentina. This is also a very, very old, I think hundreds of paintings of just hands. How were they stenciled? They're not painted, they're stenciled on the rock walls with these colors. You can, one of the things that I want to tell the people who are listening to me today is that you can look them all up yourself on Google. Now, Google is a guru now, encyclopedia guru. So you can learn more about it on your own. So waves of people occupied these caves from 11,000 years ago. And from hunter-gatherers to modern nomads. And a missionary, a Spanish missionary, discovered them, discovering is stupid, saw them for modern eyes in 1941. Okay, so now what does this tell us? This tells us that we need to create an inner well, like a fish pond, like a reservoir. If you don't take care of a fish pond, what happens? The water depletes, it gets dirty, it gets blocked up, it dries up. Now, as human beings, we must also see ourselves as a fish pond, and we must clean ourselves, purify ourselves, and nourish ourselves by feeding something in constantly, because we draw from this fish pond to live our lives, right? To do everything that we do. So how do you replenish it? You replenish it from art, I think. Art experience helps us to restock that pool. It gives us a sense of fulfillment, tells us of possibilities, aspirations. Now look at these paintings. Why did they draw their hands? This is something so amazing. Why not nose? Why not eyes? Why not any other part of the body? I think it's raising your hand to reach something beyond you. This is my explanation. You may find your own explanations. And what happens when you reach out to try and get something else? You can bond with other human beings, but you can also try to go beyond this world and have an understanding of things which are abstract, which are transcendental, which are beyond our sense experience. So I think the hand suggests aspirations of many different kinds. Can we go to the next one? We go to the Mahabharata now. Just wanted to give you an idea. Just these are the Kauravas gathered together. Look at the way the artist has compressed a sense of multitudes. The strength of a people is in their collective power, right? That collective power is what you see here. And it amazes me because within a small, look at the device of just dividing it with tears and giving you endless number of people. It's a bigger panel than the picture that I've shown here. It's only a part of it. So what is the power of these people? That is what we get from this when people get together. But they're the Kauravas. Can we go to the next one? This is from the modern times, 19th century, 20th century, but it is in a place called the Shekhawati region in Rajasthan. And guess who got them painted? We don't know the painters. Most of the painters in India, sculptors, artists across the world too in the past, we don't know their names. They didn't bother to leave their names. What they left was their whole soul and their vision in the art that they left behind us. So behind for us. So here, what you see, it's an open air museum because the houses in this region were inhabited by the business community, mainly the community of the Agarwals. And they became very wealthy, and they commissioned artists to paint outside their houses and inside their houses, a riot of colors. And you could have scenes from the scriptures, from the past, from mythology, but also from modern times. It's a place that I haven't visited, but I hope to visit one day. I hope you visit it too, because it looks wonderful. And what I like about this particular painting is this is a crucial moment in the Mahabharata, the dice game. And though all the faces look similar, you will see that the faces, there is a difference in the expression and the way in which they hold their heads. Within a small, this painting is huge, but within one single painting, the artist has conveyed to us a sense of, look at Duryodhana and look at Dharmaputra. Look at the expressions on their face, the very way they are seated. You can, even though both of them are extending their hands, you can see something of their character and nature from the way in which the artist has put the feelings of the people in this particular painting. Next, this is the final battle. And this is a North Indian, more recent, must be 18th century, I think. And there were famous books in which the Mahabharata was written, and there were illustrated books of the Mahabharata. This is one of those pages because you can see the verses written at the top. This is a moment before the battle begins. Look at the splendor of the elephants, the magnificence, the spectacular quality of the colors, you know. What is going to happen? This is a moment frozen in time just before the battle begins. And what is going to happen after the battle? That is what we think now. Look, there are two deer in front, okay? Mm-hmm. And they're not going to be there. They will run away when the battle begins. And all that will be left of this spectacular scene that we see before our eyes, and these human beings, is nothing but torn limbs, broken bodies, rivers of blood. So this is the contrast, I think, that I feel when I look at it. Then let's look at the next one. I have been there. This is in Tripura in the northeast. Okay. Northeastern part of India. And unfortunately, we know so little about the northeastern regions in our own country. This particular sculpture is a mountain. A mountain has been carved, a hillock has been carved as the face of, I'm sure you've recognized it, Shiva. You can see the waters of the Ganga coming down on his locks as he has opened them. He has opened them out to receive the divine Ganga as she rushes down from the skies to water the earth. And what is interesting about this to me is the fact that the God is seen as nature. He is the mountain. So what does that mean? Nature is divine. And it is this is a lesson in environmentalism, in conservation, coming down to us back from the 9th, 10th centuries. Okay, 9th, 10th centuries. CE. Okay. And as we know, every temple, ancient temple, has a sacred pond which must be kept clean, which is not kept clean now, and also a sacred tree that we worship. You look around you, the way people led their lives in the past across the world. I'm talking about India because I'm an Indian. Across the world, they lived in consonance with nature, in harmony with nature, and they seem to have understood the importance of not destroying nature. And these are the symbols that they have left behind to tell us that God is nature. Shiva is the mountain. And the mountain must be worshipped. It is sacred. It is that which we taught, gives us a science lesson in, soil erosion and the importance of trees and the importance of rivers and the importance of not having climate change. Just look at that. It gives you all those lessons. But it is a thing of awesome beauty. This place is scattered with hundreds of sculptures like this across the mountain, and you get a little breathless when you see one after the other. You must go and see this too. All right, let's come back from Northeast to South India. This is Jnana Saraswati. And, well, one of the best examples of Chola sculpture. This is in Gangaikonda Cholapuram, down south, near Tanjavur. And it is the temple is called the Gangaikonda Cholapuram temple. It was built by the great imperial Chola king named Rajendra I. Rajendra was one of the greatest conquerors of the southern kings. It's said that he went up to the Ganges, to the Ganga, and conquered many territories. He brought the sacred waters of the Ganga on the elephants and consecrated this temple called Gangaikonda Cholapuram with the waters of the Ganga we have to transport ourselves back to those times, that is 10 centuries ago. Imagine, how do you bring water from Benares down to Tamil Nadu? I mean, think of the endeavor, think of the planning, think of the labor. And why did they labor to do this? Why did they think it was important to consecrate the temple with the Ganga? Because the temple is a center of not only spirituality, but beauty. And I think if you can create such exquisite sculptures and brilliant architecture like the Chola kings did, I think they saw beauty as spirituality, which we do. And I chose this particular sculpture rather than anything else for you for a simple reason. What is the symbol that we associate most with Saraswati? You think of Saraswati, immediately you think of her with a veena. But there is no veena in the Saraswati's hand. Why? This is a question. She's called Jnana Saraswati, the Saraswati of knowledge. So why should she discard the veena? Because the veena is an instrument that is supposed to be sacred, that is supposed to create sacred knowledge in the world. It's supposed to resonate with the power of the sacred sound of knowledge that resonates across the universe. Om. Right. So why should she discard it? Possibly because the sculptor thought that the goddess herself was a veena. She was creating the music. Her entire being is that resonance. Her entire being is that power. And what power? It is the power of knowledge. Let's go to the next one, which this we go to Bengal. I've tried to go across India for us to see that beauty is everywhere, and artistic efforts, labors, commitment, dedication, you find it everywhere. This is an old metal sculpture, which is now cleaned up, but it's part of the forest in the Sundarbans. I think you know what the Sundarbans are, mangrove forests in the delta of the Ganga. When you say Sundarbans, almost everyone thinks of, the first thing that comes to your mind are the tigers there. Very strange tigers that can swim and live adapted themselves to live in the mangrove forest. There are innumerable legends about the tigers in the Sundarbans. And this is the goddess. Her name is Bon Bibi. Bon Bibi with her brother, Shah Jangli. Both of them protect the people of the mangrove forests. The dwellings of the dwellings of the people, those parts are protected by Bon Bibi. Why? Because the interior forest, the dense, dark forest with all kinds of dangers and terrors, it is ruled by a demon called Dakhan. Why Dakhan Shah? Now, Dakhan Shah, Dakhan means south, southern. So this is a kind of a prototype of, can we see the next one? That's the Kansha. That's right. This is a prototype of someone like Ravana, let us say. And there are any number of stories. You can easily Google and find out a beautiful story about Dakhan Shah being defeated by Bon Bibi and Shah Jangli. Dakhan Rai being defeated by Bon Bibi and Shah Jangli. And what is most interesting to me in this legend, India is a place where there are hundreds of legends, and those legends are depicted in our arts, okay? Immortalized in our arts. What is special about this particular? Because Bon Bibi is not an Indian goddess. Bon Bibi, the story tells us that she was born in the Middle East to somebody called Berahim and Gulal Bibi. And she and her brother Shah Jangli were blessed by Allah when they were praying in the mosque with two magic hats, which they wore, and which the hats let them fly across to come to the land of 18 tides, which is the Sundarbans in Hindustan. And there they defeated Dakhan Rai and redeemed the people. And today, Hindus, Muslims, and a few Christians there, everyone worships Bon Bibi. Before they go into the jungle to gather honey or wood, they first pray to Bon Bibi and ask for her blessings. Look at the beautiful way in which he wears shoes. So there is a slight Muslim, there's a very clear Muslim touch here. And I think this legend tells us how we can transcend differences of caste and creed and religion, which we really need in India and across the world. Okay, let's go to the next one. I'm just going to give you a glimpse of it. It's the Pashupati seal from Mohenjo-daro. People say that this is the ancient prototype of the god that we now know as Shiva. He's surrounded by animals. Look, he's a god of the animals. Once again, we see how the ancients saw gods pervading nature and protecting nature. Okay, let's go to the caves of Ajanta now. Wow. Every time I look at this, I really almost get tears in my eyes. Look at the beauty of it, you know. This has been completely eroded through time, but this is there are two paintings of the most famous painting, most well-known paintings, let's say, of Ajanta are of Bodhisattvas. This is Bodhisattva Padmapani. He holds a lotus in his hand. Look at the way he's looking down. Look at the expression in his eyes. So what is astonishing about the Ajanta paintings is that they caught the movement of the body and the expression, what today we call rasa, the expression, the emotions that are felt within, and movements, you know, the movements of you can see the gods flying without feathers, okay? And by the way the bodies disport themselves, you can say that the gods are flying. Here, of course, the Bodhisattva is Padmapani, is standing there. Padmapani means one who holds, Padma is lotus and Pani is hand, right? He has the hand in the lotus. So he is supposed to be the image of compassion, karuna. All the karuna or the compassion that the Buddha symbolized, the concept of ahimsa that we now know through Mahatma Gandhi and the whole world knows, that concept of ahimsa really comes to us from the Buddha. And this Padmapani symbolizes the essence of the concept of karuna. And look at the way he does it. See, it is one thing to say he represents compassion, but you have to feel it when you see it. Can you see it in the way in which his locks, curly locks, fall slowly behind, the light that comes at the back, the slight touch of radiance? Because karuna always makes you radiant because it elevates you above the earth, right? So the moment you're compassionate, you are partaking of the highest human quality. And look at the eyes rain compassion, concern for you, for those who are helpless, those who are underprivileged, those who are suffering. Look at the expression on the mouth, the way the mouth is painted. You can see it. And you can see the body is slightly bent. That bending shows also is an expression of karuna. the Bodhisattva is melting with his feelings for those whom he empathizes with, whom he pities, for whom he has compassion. Can we see the next one? This is Bodhisattva Vajrapani. This is the second famous painting from Ajanta. This is even more eroded. But look at the details of the brilliant jewels, the crown that he wears. Look at the strands of pearls, and then look at his, Vajrapani. Vajra is a thunderbolt-like weapon. So this man holds, we don't have the whole picture, so you can't see. He holds a Vajra in his hand, the weapon. He's supposed to be the Buddha. You will ask, of course, if a Bodhisattva has, by the way, do you know who a Bodhisattva is? Bodhisattva is refers to the different incarnations of the Buddha that he underwent before he became the Buddha. Through many incarnations and births as Bodhisattvas in many forms, in many parts of India, even as women. The Buddha gained the power that he was to achieve, the power of enlightenment, which he was to achieve when he was born as Siddhartha. His knowledge and enlightenment did not come to the Buddha in one birth, in one lifetime. It came through a succession of a series of births. And here, Vajrapani holds the weapon not to attack, but to protect. If Padmapani stands for compassion, Vajrapani stands for protection. The other thing that I love this painting for a very special reason. Look at the eyes. Look at that mouth. The mouth, there is a certain amount of dejection in it, I feel. In the midst of all the splendors of wealth and jewelry and power and, military might, this man is not happy. He is dejected. Why is he dejected? Because he feels for the sufferings of human beings, because human beings eternally suffer, and this is the man who feels suffering for human beings. Then can we go to the next one? Okay, now we are shifting countries. We have now come to Japan. 1 second, I want to see the time.
You're good.
I'm good? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is... just giving you time to look at it. There have been painters from ancient times, even to today, in Japan, and I think also in China, who paint nothing but bamboos, only bamboos, all their lives, again and again and again and again. Why? Because also you notice the writing on the painting. See, for the ancient Chinese people, painting and calligraphy, which is the writing of words, calligraphy, were allied arts, and they were born and grew together. I mean, the writing of those letters is also part of the painting. It's not an explanation of the painting. It's part of the painting. So you have, unfortunately, we can't understand the calligraphy. We can only have an apprehension of half of this painting. But if you knew the calligraphy, it gives you another dimension in understanding. Now, ever since the beginning, as I told you, the bamboo has been a subject of absolute fascination for Chinese and Japanese artists. So why? Because in China and Japan, art is not just what you see. Art is what you imagine. So there are many levels of imagination here. One is the imagination of the painters and the artists, the musicians, the poets who've gone before you. So a painter is not just a painter. He has experienced music, he's heard music, he has seen dancing, he's seen theater, he has read books, he has responded to poetry. All those experiences gather together and flow through his body and his fingertips through the brush onto the paper or cloth, whatever he is painting on. So what are the three layers of imagination here? Actually, we have them too. One is the imagination that comes down to us in our culture, or the imagination of the tribe, of our race, of our ancestors, of all those people who have gone before us, artists and others. So that is one imagination. The second layer of imagination is your own original, your thinking, what you are capable of imagining. And the third level is the imagination of the person who's looking at it. What do I feel when I look at it? Without this, I cannot imagine it. I need this to imagine it, right? So when I'm actually recreating this painting with my imagination. If I don't see anything in it, it's just a piece of paper with some splotches of paint. If I see something in it, I see a whole world. How do I see that whole world? I see it through my imagination. And this is the faculty, I believe, which makes human beings human beings. You know, we've learned in schools and so on that reason, the capacity to reason, logic, rationalism, this is what makes a human being, differentiates him or her from animals. So animals also have a certain amount, some animals have more, a certain amount of reasoning power, but very, it's nothing compared to the power of reasoning that human beings have. So this is what they say makes us human beings. But I think it's not reason, but the faculty of imagination, which enables us to be human being, to see beyond ourselves. If you take, the other faculty important, okay, let's look at the four faculties that human beings have. One is imagination. One is instinct. We all have some instinct. Primitive people had more instinct than we have. Children have more instincts. Animals have more, their instinct developed much more than ours, but we do have instinct. Sometimes when we enter a room, before some disaster happens, we feel that it's going to happen. That is instinct. Second is our power of emotion, our feeling. We feel, we suffer, we enjoy, we laugh. So that is the second power. The third is the power of reason, which is supposed to be, that's what philosophers say, man, the crown of creation, because he has reason, which animals don't have, because animals have instinct and emotion. But the third, it is the power of imagination, I think, which makes us, because we can use instinct, emotion, and reason to imagine something beyond ourselves. Okay, so this is an example of that, because when you look at it, it's what you make of it. The beauty of the leaves. And why is the bamboo so important? I'll just tell you that, and then we move on to the next one. The bamboo is important because it represents, see, because you imagine, you see things, objects, and images as symbols and images, which have more meaning than what they are themselves, physically. And what is it? Here, the bamboo stands for strength. It is always upright. It bends in the wind, but doesn't break. So it represents a sage or someone who is very highly evolved, who in times of suffering and adversity can still bend to accommodate himself or herself to the situation, but does not break. And then to the great philosopher Confucius, the bamboo represented moral force, the power of knowing right from wrong. And painting a bamboo, contemplating a bamboo, looking at a bamboo painting, it is an act of self-improvement, self-cultivation. See how much there is in this painting, which seems to be like, something that a child could have drawn, right? And it also has a visual appeal. I mean, you can't just create paintings out of philosophy. So the visual appeal is this. If you've seen bamboo, the shadows of bamboos under sun or under the moon falling on the wall and the way they quiver, that has such a poetic effect. And I think this also adds to the magic of the bamboo. Okay, let's go to the next one. Again, we are in a world of symbolism and imagery. The crane is also a symbol of very long life, and it is associated with immortality. And because the crane flies up in the blue sky, in the vast skies, it represents freedom, it represents immortality. It also represents endurance. And two cranes together, as walking together or standing together, are seen to as symbols of, what shall I say, strength and friendship. So the crane has many different symbols, and the peach tree that you see here, that's a very important tree because that is also seen as a tree of immortality because it's a long living tree. And a peach tree in Chinese mythology is grown in celestial gardens. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is a modern, perhaps the most famous Japanese painting across the world. You'll see it, in television serials when I see a businesswoman's or a lawyer's room will have a painting, hanging on the wall. Several times I've seen this painting hanging on the wall. The first time I saw it was in a museum in Chicago. It just blew me away. I walked into the room. I never knew anything about this print or about the painter. But when I saw it, it was just so mind-blowing. I actually felt that a great wind of tremendous velocity was pushing me away, backwards in astonishment. Because if you see it as a huge painting, not as a small picture image on your laptop or whatever you have, you will see the power of it. See the wave rising. Is it a tsunami? Is it a rogue wave that comes sometimes? Look at those little boats there. And right behind is Mount Fujiyama. I won't spend time on Mount Fujiyama because people talk for years about it. It is the perfect mountain in Japan. And innumerable artists have drawn it, written poems about it, danced about it, sung about it. This mountain, which is the spiritual mountain, this particular artist drew a series of Fujiyama pictures. This was the very first that he drew, and it became the most famous. The years were between 1829 and 1833, so it's not far out, it's not way back in the far past. There were 36 views of Mount Fujiyama drawn by this Japanese artist called Hokusai. And this is a block print on wood. It's not done on paper. And this influenced many this technique of wood cutting and wood prints and wood painting. This influenced a great number of artists in Europe who tried the same kind of thing and also used the imagery in their paintings. So let's go to the next one. This I saw recently. This painter is called Bartolome, I can't pronounce his name. Esteban is the second name. Esteban Murillo, Murillo. I repeat, Murillo, Murillo. He's a Spanish Baroque painter. And I went to the National Gallery in London, just to pass time. And then they had an exhibition of Murillo's paintings. So I just went in. And this was the first one I saw. What I think Murillo does here is, he has these two women. Look at the expressions on their faces. What are they looking at? They are looking outside. Are they looking at you, standing and gaping at them? Are they looking at some scene in their own world? The expressions of these two people, these two women, one old and one young, is so riveting, arresting. By making them look out of a window, one is actually, slightly out of the window, the other one is opening the door. So, it gets so many symbolic meanings, right? When you open the windows of your mind, you say, open the window, take the world into you. So from inside, they're coming out into the world and looking at it, and look at their reaction to it. The older woman is amused. So is the younger woman. What are they amused by? What is it that they're seeing? So, you can ask yourself a series of questions about this and write whole stories. Next. This is the Washerwoman by a French painter called Camille Corot. Some of you may know that there was a school of painting in France in the 19th century called Impressionist painting. When Rukmini comes on the screen, you can see that she has one of the Impressionist paintings hanging behind her in her room. It is called The Impression of Sunrise. There's a sunrise over the waters, but the way the painter has seen it, seen the sunrise and seen the waters and seen the whole scene, and the technique that he has used, his brush strokes, which are not like a classical painting. See, they're kind of, they're strokes, impressionistic, it's called. This kind of painting is called impression because you don't use smooth brushwork. They kind of jabs, but there is a meaning in that. And this, and you know, nothing is definite. There is a certain fluctuation there. Something is moving. Something is not fixed and static. You know, seems to have a movement. The brush strokes themselves seem to be moving. You know, and what the painter gives you is an impression. Doesn't give you the thing. This is how I see it. Okay. All the Impressionists did that, and they evolved an entirely new style of painting, which was highly condemned and criticized. It always is. You make a change and people will say this is rubbish. And eventually, this has become one of the most famous schools of painting. Even today, I think most people love to watch Impressionist paintings. I do, for sure. And each Impressionist painter, and this developed in France, and each Impressionist painter has his own style, you know, within that. It's like, okay, let's take an example. Most of us, let us say, if you're a South Indian, you make sambar at home, or you make anything that is the main dish of your culture. Everybody makes it, but each mother makes it differently. You know, each person makes it differently. It's the same thing, but the same recipe, but it's made differently. In the same way, the Impressionists developed it was a philosophy, you know, to say that I will see the world like this. I will not see the world as it is and reflect it like a mirror. I will show you as my imagination sees. So this is a first example of Impressionist painting. Can we just go back to that? I just wanted to say something here. The fact that this is a washerwoman. She's not an aristocrat. She's not a princess. She's not a rich person, a powerful person. She has worked all day and she's sitting there. This is a moment of quiet after a whole day's labor. Look at that expression on her face. What is she thinking? This is what is fascinating. Next. Sorry, the previous one was by Pissarro. I don't know. This is Corot. I don't know if I told you, both of them are Camille. The washerwoman is by Camille Pissarro, and this is by Corot. Corot is C-O-R-O-T. Now, this painting was actually, when it was displayed, it was criticized by the critic who said that it's not fully finished. So Corot actually reworked it. But he reworked only the landscape and the sky. He left the woman as she was, unfinished, as the critic called it. I think he thought it was finished, and that's what is important. And I think it's not so much about that woman as about what she's doing. Because see what this is so sad that this is not a real session, because then I would have paused and asked you, instead of going on and on and on and on, spilling my words, I'd have asked you, what do you find in it? Because that's what the painting is about. It's what you find in it. So I'll tell you what I find in it. The fact that she's reading a book she's foregrounded, that means in front, which means that, and slightly raised, she's sitting on some kind of a stone or some kind of a mound there, against the sky and against the water and against the land, right? There are three different elements there. So what is she doing? She's reading a book. What is her expression? Her expression tells you that she's lost in the book. Is she aware of the sky? Is she aware of the waters? Is she aware of the land, the birds, the flowers, whatever is around her? Not at this moment. She's totally jumped into the book. It's only her body which is outside. The mind, through the eyes, has entered the book, which means she has entered another world. And look at the hand that is placed on her chin. It suggests a sense of, to me, it suggests a sense of wonder, a sense of excitement, a sense of, can this be? So she is totally into it. It's like when we read, I think this is the expression each and every one of us has when we read a book in which we are completely engaged, because we forget the world outside and we are in the world of the book. So what has Koro painted here? He has painted to us two worlds, the world of reality outside and the world of the individual, three worlds actually, the world of the individual whom he has foregrounded and the world that the individual is getting into in the other. So she is seated in one world, but she's actually in another world. I think this is the magic of art and reading. This happens to us whenever we look at any work of art. The magic of art and what the art experience, I think, is encapsulated throbbingly, powerfully, unforgettably in this painting. Let's go to the next one.
Gowri,
Time.
Shall we give a 15-minute break and then come back to art and painting? I don't think that we should skip over it. Let's come back to the painting.
I have only one more painting to talk about.
Okay. So let's
go on to that. Starry Night, and then show the other three for them to think about. Okay. Sure. Let's go to Van Gogh, who is okay. This is perhaps one of the most famous painting of Vincent Van Gogh, and also one of the most famous paintings of Impressionism. Van Gogh usually painted only what he saw in real life. But this particular painting is totally from his imagination. There is nothing like this where he was at the time that he painted or in any part of, nor did he spend his time in any part of the world in real time, which looked like this. So it came out of his mind. And when did it come out of his mind? That's what is exciting. Came out of his mind when he was in a lunatic asylum. He was confined there for extreme depression, paranoia, and he was not quite sound of mind. And he painted this. Now look at the paintings. Look at the painting. You can see the steeple of the church there, and you see all the houses. The houses are all, and then there are black squares. I mean, very clearly marked lines, straight, clear lines with which he has done the little village. Okay, but the tree which comes out is raising itself up. It's completely twisted. And the sky, I mean, it's so bizarre. The lines are flowing and there is how many moons, how many suns. We don't really know what are they, moon, sun and stars, I suppose. And then the wind, we don't know what it is. And then there is a mountain. The sky is completely swirling. There are no straight lines there. Everything is fluid. Nothing is static. It's dynamic. It's moving, you know. And then that movement and power, it comes down in slanting strokes through the mountains, comes to the village, and then it becomes static lines. So I think Van Gogh was trying to say that there is a world which is dynamic and moving and swirling and, you know, which doesn't know rest at all. And that world comes down, when it comes down to the earth, that movement becomes arrested, not static, but arrested. But there is hope there because you see the steeple going up and the tree is also going up. So I think Van Gogh brings God into the world, the God in the sky who is always movement into the world. So he establishes a connection between the deranged mind and that core of power and stability which is within each one of us. Okay, next one, I'm just going to show it to you. This is one of my favorite pictures. I wrote a play about this, inspired by this, called Water Lilies. This is one of the most famous painters of Impressionism is Monet, Claude Monet, M-O-N-E-T. There's another guy called M-A-N-E-T, Manet, but this is Monet. And Monet painted late in his life, the last 20 years of his life, I think. He went to a place called Giverny in France. He built a little, he made a little garden for himself and he studied it and sat and watched it. and he developed a pond there where he grew water lilies and he watched them. He didn't think he was going to do it, but he actually painted 250 water lilies, which are scattered across museums in the world and prized tremendously. And there is a museum in France which houses 8 huge canvases of water lilies in a room in a circular way. It's a circular room with water lilies all around you on the wall. So when you enter, you feel that you're inside the pond. And I'm just going to leave it. Why did he paint lilies? Let's see the next one, Ruku. This is close up of his lilies. Why did he paint it? So I thought about it and wrote my play. Then I'm going to, yes, leave you with Mona Lisa. And I don't want to say anything about it because the most famous painting in the world, it hangs in France, Louvre. It is painted by Leonardo da Vinci, the Italian painter. This dumpy woman who's not beautiful, not particularly attractive, why she has become the most intriguing subject of the most famous, the most valuable painting in the world, I don't know. I leave it to you to discover it.
We'll take a short 10-minute break now, and we'll gather together at 10:10. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Welcome back all. Kindly settle in so that we can resume this fascinating talk.
Hi. I don't know if it's fascinating, but I've been just spilling words like crazy. Anyway, what I wanted to start with was some music. Ruku, can you play Shankara?
Yes.
Okay, before that, I'll just give an introduction, you play it, okay? This is I want to start with Carnatic music because I am being trained in it. And this is the music of South India. We don't know how old it is, but there is evidence in temple sculptures, poetry, all kinds of things from the past, which tells us that there was an art music in South India, in India. And when the Muslim invasion started in the north in the 14th century or so on, 13th, 14th centuries, slowly the influence of the different tribes that came into India brought their music, and there was an amalgamation of those two styles in North India that became Hindustani music. Eventually developed, and nothing happens overnight, as you know, became Hindustani music. And what you have in the South is an unbroken tradition of the original music that existed in India. Now, these are all things people say, but there is no absolute evidence for anything. As if you know something about art, I'm sure all of you do, of course, the thing is, nothing remains static. Things keep changing and they are influenced. There is no pure art. Art is always influenced by other forms of art, life, and changing times. Okay, let's just hear this particular example and then it'll inspire us. It's kind of difficult to speak after listening to this kind of extraordinary, rapturous, bewitching, entrancing voice, but bewitching music. This is called a raga alapana, which means alap, they say in the north, which is the expansion or the improvisation of a particular raga. This is not a music appreciation class, so I'm not going to go explain what a raga is, except to say that it's a melody. Do I need to, Ruku? Do I need to say what a raga is?
Gowri, please say anything, introduce it in any way you like.
Because, I think what I'm going to try and do is to give some ideas for you to follow, because the people who are listening, they will have different levels of knowledge about the different things that one speaks about, right? So I will just go with the idea that a raga is a melody, a particular kind of melody. It has a scale. This particular raga is called Shankara Bharanam. What a lovely name. It means the jewel that is worn by Shiva, Shankara. It has 7 notes up and 7 notes. Sari Gama Padhani Sa Sani Da Pa Ma Gari Sa. So difficult to speak and sing, but anyway. So the thing is that within these 7 notes, the musician is free to do whatever he or she wants. So in a way, improvisation is the most powerful means of self-expression, originality, development. So it's like this, you're given some blocks in different colors. You're asked to make something of it. One child makes a house, another child makes a pond, a third child creates a forest. So, but the blocks are the same. It's like that. So you have these notes. Each raga has a set of notes, and with that set of notes, with that particular set, you can do whatever you like. which means it is a challenge to your imagination. That is why there is a difference between the raga singing of a young newcomer to the field and someone who has had years of experience. So this is Subbalakshmi. When she received, when you hear Subbalakshmi singing Shankarabharanam when she was 22, it will sound very different from the Shankarabharanam that she will sing when she's 40. So music is something that grows not only with time and the contributions of other artists and scholars and listeners, but also with the age of the artist. So, I've given you an example of Carnatic music. Let's have an example of Hindustani music. You just get it ready, Rupu, while I'm as I said, that it is because of the influx of other races, languages and cultures in the form of attack and conquest. People came from Muhammad Gowri's time to settle here. And the people who came, whether it was Muhammad Ghazni or Muhammad Gowri or, any number of people who came later, they not only brought their horses and weapons and their soldiers, they also brought their music. So that music, they brought musical instruments. Some of you may know a very famous musician of India called Amjad Ali Khan. Amjad Ali Khan's ancestors, six generations before him, they came from Afghanistan as traders on horseback. And they brought an instrument called the rabab, which is an Afghan instrument. They settled down here, and that with each generation, they improved that rabab until it became the sarod, right? So they did not play the same music that they played 6 generations ago. They played a different kind of music. Let's listen to that. This is Thanks. Now, Hindustani music, this music, is the amalgam, as I said, of Persian, Turkish, Afghan, Mongolian music that came down here. So in fact, some years ago, I heard something like a violin by a Mongolian musician. And it was very interesting because the tune that he played was so similar to one of the Hindustani rags that I knew that they asked me to come and sing that song. I went and sang that song and he played it with that. It was the same notes, okay, but handled very differently. So music has a universal language. That's the most important thing. Unlike painting and sculpture and poetry and, the other arts, music is something that directly attacks your ear. Sorry, attack is the wrong word, falls on your ear. And because it falls directly on your ears, it is, I think perhaps the hearing is, the way we have 5 senses, right? The way hearing works has its own distinct power. And it seems to overcome the problems of language, culture, race, time, period, and you can listen to, I have heard African flutes and been absolutely enchanted by it, though I know nothing about the country that the person is playing from. I know nothing about the development of the music in that country, but I listen to those notes and I get completely transported. So, and how music travels from one part of the world to another is through journeys and travels, of course, not only through through trade routes. It's not only during, it's not only with conquests by war, but through trade that people exchange, right? And the settlers come, the one country is completely ravaged by war. Those people come as immigrants to another country. They bring their music with them, right? So I just wanted to give you a small example of how it travels in a very literal way, let's say. You heard the rag, this is called Bhim Palasi, sung by Shubha Mutkar. I love this ragam so much that recently I set something to music with this ragam to a Tamil song, which has nothing to do with Hindustani music. But I use that, and I'll just sing a couple of lines to show you. இனிய புனல் அருவித்தவள் இன்பமலை சாரலிலே கனி குலவும் மரநிழலில் கரம் பிடித்து உவந்ததெல்லாம் கனவுதானோ. See, it's the same notes, the same music you heard. And I have adapted it not as Hindustani music, but for a Tamil song with Carnatic tunes to it. And music this is one of the ways in which music helps us to bond. That's why it's a bonding device for humanity. More powerful than poetry, more powerful than painting, more powerful than every other art form. And I'm not saying it as Gowri Ramnarayan. I'm saying it from the evidence that we have through centuries of human development. Okay? And music is perhaps the first art form that developed. We can say that how did the Stone Age people start creating music? It was in the caves paintings of, thousands and thousands of years ago. We see pictures of instruments. We see people dancing and singing. How did they get the idea of singing? Okay. So very simple. People heard the bamboos in the forest when the wind blew through the holes and creating music, right? So that was the first music that primitive man must have heard, primitive woman must have heard. And then they started imitating that and they found pleasure in it. So the important thing about music as an art form is that art does not serve any purpose. It has no purpose except to be art, except to create beauty. Other things that we get out of it, human bonding, educational therapy, all kinds of things, those are all byproducts. That's not the purpose for which art was created. Art was created as the expression of the highest emotions, thoughts, imagination, instinct that a human being can feel. And that is what art reflects. So when you're doing art or responding to art, you're participating in something beyond yourself. And you're connecting yourself to humanity, not only of your time, but all the ages that have gone before. And don't forget, your art experience will go down after you, those who come after us. So it is a continuous process of development. This Shankarabharanam that you heard, that M.S. Subbulakshmi sang, it's not hers. Where did that raga come from? It came in ancient times from so many different sources. And down the years and centuries, it came down. It acquired polish, it acquired change, it acquired manipulations, embellishments, deletions, additions, and then it has become the Shankarabharanam of today. Who knows what Shankarabharanam will sound like 4 centuries from now, 2 centuries from now, even 50 years from now. So art is in the process of, if I had time, I would play even in our own times how the raga has changed. We could show, musicians, clips from different musicians down the ages. But you can experiment with it yourself with your Google Guru. And you will know that what I say is absolutely true. Because Shubha Mudgal is a younger musician. She sings Bhim Palasi in a way which is very different from the people who sang it long, long ago. But you have to have, the important thing there is, you have to train your ear to understand it. Now, I don't see why this is difficult. Because can you become an engineer without training, without study? Can you become a doctor without years and years of backbreaking study and practice? Can you become anything without cooking? Take anything, even sweeping the street. The first day you come and sweep the street, you won't sweep it well. But 1 year down the line, the street will be spotless by the time you finish, if you've learned it, right? You've learned it to practice. So why is it that people say, oh, I don't understand it. It's all too high funda for me. This art music is beyond me. I don't understand raga. I don't understand tala. You don't have to understand anything. All you need is an open mind. Have an open mind. You open yourself to the world. That's why I used the word window, earlier when we saw that painting. I like the painting for that. Opening the window and looking out. Open the window, look out, and see what you see, take what you want, leave what you don't want. In one lifetime, it is not possible for us to learn everything, but we can choose what we want to learn and develop that, right? So I think what is the joy in art music? Why should you listen to M.S. Subbulakshmi? Why not listen to Lata Mangeshkar? Why not listen to A.R. Rahman, Shreya Ghoshal? Listen to them all. I mean, I listen to everything. But why should you also listen to M.S. Subbulakshmi or any other classical musician? This is a question to be asked, isn't it? Because I think it is something that you can hear again and again and again. Whereas when it comes to look at the shelf life of any popular song, it sweeps the world at one go. Now, does anybody remember Kolavari? The whole of India was talking about Kolavari at one time, or Chinna Chinna Asai. Now, does anybody remember those songs? No, others have supplanted them. It's like that. But art music across the world, whether it's Western classical or Indian, or it comes down, enriches itself, it accumulates wealth and power. It develops layers. Just as you can be just a simple GP as a doctor, or you can be a dentist, a specialist, you can be an orthopedician, you can develop. So you can develop your skills in that particular area. And what do you get out of it? When you do it as a doctor, it becomes a means of your livelihood. But that's not the only thing a doctor does, right? He saves lives, or she saves lives, right? So what you're doing, you build a house, you're building it for people. You're still connected to the world, even if you're working in professional areas. When you learn music, what happens is you enrich yourself. You enrich yourself and you enrich others. If you know music, you can bring up your children in music. They can bring up their children in music. So it goes through. If you're a reader, your children will read. They will not read if you tell them you must read a book. But if they find you reading and your child comes and says, I'm hungry, and you say, let me just finish this last page, as I used to do all the time, my children remind me, let me just finish that last page. And they think that something very special. Mama is not even feeding her, she's reading that book, so it must be very special. They start reading. So I think when you look, and it's only by example that we can ever pass anything on. We can't do it through words or by advice. So this is important. That's the importance of art music, because it enriches your mind, it adds layers to your thinking. And because art music also demands an intellectual engagement. It's not just tapping your feet and responding to the music, and forgetting about it. It demands an intellectual participation. Your brain has to work too. Your heart and your brain have to work at the same time, lightning speed, And there's instinct also involved, because you like some things, you don't like some other things, right? In art music also. So it engages those faculties. And what about your imagination? It develops your imagination. Because if you are a regular listener, as you're listening, before the musician sings it, you will know what he or she is going to sing. In the Sangati, you know the next one, you know that is going to be the next phrase, So that is, develops your imagination. It develops your sensitivity to the world. So I'm not giving points one after the other to say this is what music does. I'm just going to say with each one what I feel, and I think that cumulatively, I hope that the idea of the importance or the value of music, importance no, but the value of music. Things are important only as long as you think they're important. Just 1 second, I've just gone somewhere and done something. I don't know why my screen has become small all of a sudden. I don't know how to enlarge it, but that's okay, no? I think that's okay. So, the next thing that I wanted to play was Tipania's Chini Chini Chadariya. It's a song by Kabir, sung by a folk musician of Madhya Pradesh. Let's listen to it.
जी पांच तत्व का पुतला और मानुष दरियाना यदि एक कला के बिछुड़ते और बिसर गया सब ठाम जी मन मथुरा दिल द्वारका काया काशी जान ये 10 द्वार का पिंजरा नया में जोत पहचान तो जो तू साचा बाणिया तो साची हाट लगा अरे अंदर झाड़ू दे के और कचरा देत बाहर चरखा चाले 5 तत्व गुण 3 वो चादर जीनी रंगीनी हो अरे हस्त कमल दल चरखा चाले 5 तत्व गुण 3 वो चादर जीनी रंगीनी हो
I think you can hear him. It's so arresting. I'm sure you'll want to hear him again. Tipaniya, Tipaniya. The song that he sang was a song by Kabir. And you see that now there is an international audience for India's Bhakti poetry. The most important movement of music, the first important thing we must know about India is that poetry and music are intertwined. They're not, every poem is sung here. We don't have recitations of poems here, only singing of poems, okay? So when you say a poem, you automatically mean something that is sung. And so here, this is a poetry of Kabir Das. All of you know Kabir Das, I'm sure. And the song that I chose, unfortunately, they don't have it in English. But I've written the meaning in English for you, for those who don't know Hindi. This is a song about a weaver. Kabir was a weaver. And as a weaver, he says that the Lord has worn a very fine and delicate tapestry, free of impurities of any kind. And what subtle yarn, what complex interlacing he has used to weave it. Using veins and breath, his threads, he keeps on working for 24 hours on end. His spinning wheel turns, weaving the tapestry from all 5 essential elements. We know what the 5 essential elements are. They make up the body, they make up the earth, fire, air, water, sky. So he uses the metaphor, you know what a metaphor is, to talk of something by using something else. He uses the metaphor of weaving, because he is a weaver, to tell you that life is like God has woven this tapestry of the earth, which is made of the 5 elements, and how brilliantly, how complicated, how subtle his weaving is, and should we not live up to it? So Chini Chadariya, let's go on weaving along with the Lord. Okay, so very high, extremely complicated philosophic concepts were explained in the simplest words by Kabir. There's a doha of Kabir, which I'm very fond of. many of you will know it, I'm sure. Pahan puje hari mile, to main pujung pahar. Tate ye chakhi bhali, phi peace khaye sansar. If you worship a mountain and you get God, that is, you worship a huge image and you achieve God's blessings. Stone. Pahan puja harimil. If you worship a stone in a temple and you think that you've achieved godhood, I will worship a mountain. It is 1,000 times bigger than that image in the temple. Better than that is this mortar and pestle, because we work on it and it produces some results. The whole world eats the flour that is made out of this. I turn the wheel and I get out of it. So what he's saying is that don't be misled by blind superstitions. Don't be misled by outward symbols of religion. What God wants you to do is to work and be productive and help the world. Just as a mortar and pestle helps the world by making flour for people to eat. So what you have to do is you must contribute to the welfare of the world. So Kabir said they were very iconoclastic messages. He says, he whose mouth does not say Ram, his mouth is full of dust. But Kabir was not a Hindu, nor was he a Muslim. He lived in Banaras, which is the sacred city of the Hindus. But when he died, both Muslims and Hindus claimed his body. So because he transcended religion. So bhakti poetry, bhakti poetry is something that is pan-Indian across India. It began actually in Tamil Nadu in the 6th and 7th centuries by Shaiva and Vaishnava poets. It spread across India, and every state has its bhakti poets, Tukaram, Namdev, and so on. Any number of people in Kerala, Purandardasa in Karnataka, and Tulsidas, Surdas in the Hindi belt, in Bengal, the Bauls, and so on. So what is bhakti? Bhakti is devotion. But it does not, and all the bhakti poets sang of one personal God whom they loved, and they sang over and over again. For Surdas it was Krishna, for Tulsidas it was Rama, for Mirabai it was Krishna. What was special about the bhakti music movement? Because it's poetry and music. What was special about it? The special thing about bhakti movement is the fact that the bhakti poet thought all human beings were equal. Go back to the 6th century and come down through the centuries in India, caste-ridden, religious factions-ridden India, and think of the extraordinarily radical, progressive, liberal, iconoclastic message of every bhakti poet in every language of India, saying all men are equal. Nobody is high, nobody is low. We are all equal before God. And the second thing that they said, which was very important, was no gender disparities. Man and women are equal. Men and women, man and woman are equal. And the third thing, which is also relevant, is that they said, we don't need a priest. We don't need the establishment. We don't need kings. We don't need temples. We don't need rituals. All we need is to speak to God. My body is a temple. And with my body, I will worship my God. And the God does not exist in some stone building or brick building, which is static in one place. It's a moving building, which is my body. And I will worship God. And I don't care about anything else. And so this kind of daredevilry, you may say, characterizes every bhakti poet. There are innumerable stories. The thing is, we forget. I cannot understand how we've forgotten it, because we have bhakti verses which are sung by everybody, which everybody knows across India. Okay, but we have forgotten it in propagating our caste system, our religious factionalism, our communalism, our fundamentalism. So the bhakti poet said that the person you worship is God. I worship Krishna, but I don't say that you're worshiping some other God is wrong. Many bhakti poets were also from the Islamic tradition. And that is how, you have the Sufi tradition. That Sufi tradition is also a bhakti tradition. The Baul tradition of Bengal. One can just go on and on, but this is a pervasive all India tradition of music. And the music is different, fairly simple. Of course, classical musicians have appropriated bhajans and they sing it in a classical way. But bhakti poetry, bhakti music belongs to the people on the street. What did Mirabai do? She was a princess. She was a queen. She left her palace with nothing except the clothes that she wore and her tanpura. She walked down among waves and vagabonds and, all kinds of people of every caste and creed, men and women, walked with them and said that I am equal to them. My community is a community of devotees. Now, who are these devotees? This is another mistake we make. When we think of devotees, we think of people who are very religious and, committed to a particular way of worshipping. For the Bhakti poet, that was not devotion. Devotion is Manav Seva, Madhav Seva. You want to worship God, you serve humankind. They were very, very liberal. And the way they spoke, civil rights, things that civil rights leaders have said in America, I find that the same things have been said by different Bhakti poets in India, which is the equality of people, the fraternity of people, what the French Revolution said, that was said by the people of India. We have forgotten it, and we appropriate these bhajans for our own religious or fundamentalist purposes sometimes. So let's move on to another Bhakti poem by a classical musician called K.V. Narayanasamy. Ruku, you can just play about 1 minute. I just want them to get a taste. It's a very famous song called Krishna Ni Begane Baro. And what is important is, I'll tell you after you hear it. We can stop. So it's a different ways of calling. He's not come to the song yet. He's just sort of improvising on the first line. The actual line goes, Krishna ni begane paro. That's the line. That he's calling Krishna. What does the line mean? Krishna, come quickly. It was by a Bhakti poet called Vyasaraya from Karnataka, and it's in Kannada. And what is he saying? He is calling Krishna in the form of a child. Now, why do you worship God as a child? Because that's the most innocent, most tender feelings. It's not God as a child. You become a child when you think of God as a child, and you become very tender, very compassionate, very loving, very unselfish. Because I think we are most unselfish when we are with a child. So imagining God as a child and singing, and when music is added to it, it makes you so sensitive to these emotions, which are so required in the world today: tenderness, compassion, concern, unselfishness, unjudgmental quality. You don't judge a child. Even if a child does something stupid, you just laugh at it and you go on, right? You indulge a child. So these are the qualities that the Bhakti poets evoked by making God a child. By making God their lover, they evoked passion and adoration for the God. So all the tenderer emotions are aroused, but don't forget, they were also extremely strong social revolutionaries who wanted to break down all the evil practices of society. And among the Bhakti poets, many of them belong to untouchable communities. Mirabai, once again, I go back to her, her guru was Raidas, who was a chamar, who was a cobbler. So they made absolutely no distinctions between caste and creed. So that is very important. I don't think we have a lot of time, so I'm going to do only two more songs and then play the clip from the film. Let's have Hum Bhi Dekhenge, Hum Dekhenge, Faiz Ahmad Faiz. This I'm using because it's not a Bhakti poem. It's a modern poem written by a Pakistani poet, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, criticizing the dictatorship and the totalitarian rule in Pakistan. Totalitarian regime anywhere, you can say. A poem is, he did not directly say this is about Pakistan, it's about the whole world. I mean, wherever there is a totalitarian regime, this poem is applicable. And let's just listen to two lines, Ruku.
देखेंगे हम देखेंगे लाजिम है कि हम भी देखेंगे हम देखेंगे वो दिन के जिसका वादा है हम देखेंगे जो लोहे अज़ल में लिखा है हम देखेंगे जब जुल्मों से तम के कोहे गरां रूई की तरह उड़ जाएंगे हम देखेंगे हम महकूमों के पांव तले ये धरती धड़ धड़ धड़केगी और अहले हकम के सरों पर जब बिजली कड़कड़ कड़केगी हम देखेंगे बस नाम रहेगा अल्लाह का जो गायब भी है हाजिर भी जो मंजर भी है नाजिर भी उठेगा अनल हक का नारा जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो हर राज करेगी खल्क़े खुदा जो मैं भी हूँ और तुम भी हो हम देखेंगे लाजिम है कि हम भी देखेंगे हम देखेंगे
See how a poem that was written by a poet is used in India. And some of you might remember the huge controversy that arose when students of Jamia Millia protested against the Citizens Amendment Act that was passed by the Modi government. They sang the song, and immediately the RSS and the BJP clamped down on them and said that they were being seditious. Sedition is a term that was used by the British to shut up Indians. I don't think we should have any sedition rule at all in India now. So we all have the right to speak, right? So this particular song was written against against Zia-ul Haq's toppling of the Bhutto government and becoming the president of Pakistan and clamping down his regime on that. But and the main lines here you might have noticed is that when crowns are tossed under our feet, it says that things will never remain the same. Anyone who is unjust, anyone who is megalomaniac, a dictator, will one day find that his crown goes. And they will be toppled by somebody else. Okay, not that they will fall by themselves. And the day of reckoning will come. Qayamat in Urdu is the day of reckoning. The day of judgment will come. And the people will write. He doesn't say people will write. And the poem uses religious ideas, religious phrases of Islamic religion to criticize for a political purpose. It's not about, it's not a jihad against Islam. I mean, the reverse. It is, he's using the symbols of religion to topple political supremacy. Now, in India, this is a song that is a great favorite with India. Many classical musicians, as well as folk musicians, protest musicians sing. And this is a time for us to see the power of music. Okay, the music has so much power across the world. It has been used for political purposes, for the purposes of protests, from ancient times to the modern times. I will now, since we've talked so much about classical music, I think I'll talk a little about the modern music. How it has affected, how it has protested against injustice. You know, modern musicians are disenchanted with the world, and this disenchantment is something that is reflected in their music. I know only the very old ones because I'm old myself. If you take a look at the Beatles, for instance, Imagine was John Lennon's idea of what the world should be like. And it aroused a controversy among people who are regressive. Anything that any new idea, any idea which is any protest is bound to find someone who wants to repress it. So the power of protest is to go on and make sure that you're not repressed. And the musicians have continued to do that through their music. Every kind of musician across the world, from street musicians to pop musicians to jazz music. Jazz, of course, is itself a form of protest, a form of blues. And what about the African American spirituals, as they're called? You know, I learned them in school without knowing what they really meant. You know, way down upon the Swanee River, far, far away. You know, these are songs that I learned in my convent school, where I studied for a brief few years. But I didn't know that they were African-American Negro spirituals, as they were called in those days. So these are songs. Through music, people are able to express their inmost ideas, not only to reach God or to transcend, but also to improve the world. So music operates at every level. Now, we take another example, which is folk music, which Tipania represents, because he sang Kabir in the folk music mode. You saw that all the musicians, there is a chorus and there is interpolation. One says one line, another says another line. It's a community effort, right? Singing a folk song. So the folk music, what folk music does is it binds people, a community together. Somebody in the evening sits under the tree in the village square, the moon has come up and they'll bring some lamps, everybody comes and sits down and he sings a song or she sings a song. And the song is about that tribe. It records the history of the tribe, the important battles that were fought in the tribe, there are songs about the heroes of the tribe. There are songs about the sorrows and the sufferings of the tribe. There are songs about the bondings of the tribe. So by sharing all their living experience, past and present, folk music binds communities together, gives them a sense of identity, gives them their history, because they don't have scholars to come and write down their history, right? So they write their own history. This is the best form of history, really. They write their own history. So folk music is very, very important. Unfortunately, it has now become obsolescent across the world. It's dying. And what is replacing, though folk music elements have been taken by classical music, appropriated by popular music, film music, everywhere, the actual real folk music is almost non-existent now. Because when I teach music, music and freedom is a course that I teach. And when I try to find examples on Google, I can only find glamorized versions of folk music. I don't never find the authentic singers. They seem to have disappeared. God knows where they went. So I'm going to now, I want to end with a song by Tagore. But before that, there is a clip from a film that some of you might have seen or at least heard of. It's a Nobel Prize winning film. The actor won the Nobel Prize. It is called The Pianist. And it is about a pianist, a very famous pianist in Poland who was oppressed, who had to go into hiding during the Nazi regime and lived like an animal, hiding himself everywhere. And a Nazi, he is discovered in the attic by a Nazi Nazi lieutenant, and what happens? And he plays something. Let's just watch.
Was machen Sie hier? Verstehen Sie mich?
Ja.
Arbeiten Sie etwa hier?
Nein. Ich war Pianist.
Spielen Sie mal.
I think, Arey, I think it's got frozen or anyway, but you can see it, it's the pianist. And it's a very moving scene. If you know that the music that the pianist is playing is a nocturne by Chopin, the Polish musician, your sense of that, this is about layering, your understanding of that moment, its poignancy, its pathos will increase. Because Chopin lived in exile in France during the war, and it is his music that kept Poland alive as a single country and bound it as a country. People listened to Chopin and felt that they were Polish because Poland had been divided by so many different countries which had conquered it into, partitioned it into different parts and was ruled over by different regimes. They had no sense of identity and a very low self-esteem because they'd lost the war. But Chopin's music was so brilliant, so evocative, so powerful that it kept the Polish spirit alive during the war and after, and helped them to reconstitute themselves, rediscover themselves. So that is one example, but is it possible to play Lawrence of Arabia's Their Time? Because I wanted you to hear how a music director from a film exercises his freedom in creating music for a story that he has to follow, the characters he has to follow, the scene that he has to follow, visuals, everything is given to him. In spite of that, he finds his originality and his imagination. So there are many wonderful films, but this particular film I love because the sweep of the scenery and the music by Maurice Jarre, who was a classical musician, but he has composed for some of the most famous Hollywood films. Can we see it? Okay. Yes. The music that he has created paints in sounds and melody and harmony the entire spectacle of the desert. It makes you feel that you're in the desert. Watch it without muting the sound. Watch the same scenes muting the sound. The impact is not the same. It's the music that creates the desert for you. I realized that only when once the music went off, when I was watching Lawrence of Arabia, and suddenly I said, my God, it is the music which created the desert. It's not the brilliant cinematography and the spectacular visuals. Okay, let them see it themselves, Rupu. It's okay. I'll just move on. Okay. And this is so, if you've seen The Godfather, it's one of my favorites because the credit titles, the music that starts there, with the credit title, it chills your bones. Before you see the film, it just freezes your bones. And another tremendous scene is the shower scene in Psycho by Hitchcock. Mute it and watch it. The terror is very much less. It's the sounds of the music. He has created sounds, not music with sounds. That actually creates the emotion and the terror. So music is one of the most emotional forces of today. I don't hear the music.
Pitu. Where?
You can stop, Ripu. Okay, just watch it. It's all on Google. You can see it. That the way the music flows, that's what creates the visual. And a film director, imagine the disadvantages. You can't imagine and create for yourself whatever you want. You have to tailor your imagination to somebody else's demands. And still, you've had some extraordinary music flowing out. It seems to me, that's why I think film music is very important for me to understand the power of music. Nothing can suppress it. Suppress its freedom, its power, its visionary force. The musician will triumph over every attempt to suppress his imagination. That is one of the things that I found. Okay, I want to end with a song that all of you probably know from the film Kahani. It's Akla Cholore, and here is Amitabh Bachchan's version of Akla Cholore. Stop. Okay. I'm just going to read the poem to you, just three, very short one. That's the actual translation. If no one answers your call, then walk alone. Be not afraid. walk alone, my friend. If no one talks to you, oh my unlucky friend, if no one speaks to you, if everyone looks the other way and everyone is afraid, then bare your soul and let out what is in your mind. Be not afraid. Speak alone, my friend. When dark clouds cover the sky, when darkness engulfs the truth, when the world cowers and bows before fear, you be the flame that burns you and banishes darkness from the world. Be not afraid. Burn alone, my friend. I think some of the most powerful lines written by Tagore. And it is something that is so needed for all of us. And it's interesting that he did not leave it as a poem. He had it set to music by his niece, I think, and he himself worked on, he worked on the music of his own songs. So the tune that you have is a tune that Tagore himself sort of created, because the music and the lyrics go together here to reinforce a basic idea that I think all human beings need all the time. And I think I need it right now in the world today. This is the most urgent time I need this message. This is what I feel. I'm sure everyone feels it in their times. I need to walk alone. I need to stand alone. I need to speak alone. I need to burn alone. And what is it that makes you do all these things? What is it that gives you the strength, the steel, the courage to do these things? I think the arts too. The arts, all the arts, particularly music, but poetry and music particularly. Actually, I can't single out because, paintings have inspired people. Look at the Guernica of Picasso, against Spanish oppression in Franco's regime. You can find examples of art which protested and which really cleared the way for humanity, which made a plea for justice across the world. And what is it? The power of the arts. I just want to say 4 things about them, about the power of the art. One is it enriches your mind, as I said before. It enables you to see layers, not only in the art, but in the world. Secondly, it helps you to enter into other human beings and understand the world from their position. When I read Crime and Punishment, I'm a murderer. I'm Raskolnikov. I'm a murderer. I see the world through a murderer's eyes. So then it gives you an understanding of a whole range of variety of people, which you can never have in your life, which promotes universal brotherhood and understanding, because it teaches you to understand and therefore have compassion, but not to give up justice, because the arts teach you finally what is every work of art about. It's about good and bad, moral values, really, isn't it? It's not a moral lesson. I always say that in the Mahabharata, you don't need the Bhagavad Gita. I don't like the Bhagavad Gita. I find it boring. Somebody standing on a pedestal and giving you a lecture, do this, Arjuna. I'm not Arjuna. I don't want to be Arjuna. But when I read the Mahabharata, I get all the lessons in that particular Gita told to me through the experience of all the people that I've seen. I know that I must do my actions without expecting reward by looking at the Pandavas. I know what evil brings by looking at the Kauravas. I know what moral dilemmas are when I look at Dronacharya. He doesn't know whose side to take. He doesn't know how to take sides. That's a problem, isn't it? We are all unable to take sides. We don't know which way to turn, right? We are cowards. We need courage. Where do you get it? You get it from literature. You get it from poetry. You get it from paintings, from sculpture, from music, from the great cathedrals and temples and other magnificent structures of the world, from the rock shelters where you see the hands raised up to reach out to others and to reach to something beyond humanity. And you see it in Bhimbetka, where everybody is holding hands. They want to work as a community towards raising yourself up higher. I think the arts are most important because they help us to see possibilities beyond what we are doing. We may not reach them, but there's a wonderful line by the British poet Robert Browning, English poet. He says, your reach must exceed what you can what you want and what you can reach must always be beyond your grasp. You should not grasp it. If you grasp it, then you lost it. Keep on reaching. It should be just beyond you. So you keep striving, you keep moving, you keep raising yourself up. Perfection is impossible, but aspiring for perfection is possible. I think the arts teach you that, because they, I'll end with this one single experience that all of us have had, because I began with the idea of art experience, right? What is that experience? And I'll end this session. I think we have some more time. What is it that each one of us had a moment with a song, with a poem, with a book, with a movie, with a movie, with any manifestation of art, any expression of art, when we stood before it and we lost ourselves and we felt taken out of ourselves. We felt, the word I think is transported. We felt that being transported. All of us have felt it at some stage or the other. Then suddenly with a jerk, you come back and say, oh my God, I've got to go to school. That's it. So, or I have to study, or I have to go to office, or whatever it is, That is that state above us to which we aspire all the time. It's a state of bliss, excitement, wonder, rapture. It's a state of peace. It's not a state of war and fighting and violence. It is a non-violent space of bonding and peace and rapture and tranquility and meditative, whatever you want me call it, because I think language fails us at some point. And poetry is the attempt to structure language in a way that we can see the meaning between the gaps. We don't see it in the words themselves. We see the real meaning or the real experience, the real emotion, the real thought of that poem between the words, in the silences, and then you say that there is something higher than us. That to me, that is God. And through literature, I can reach that godhood, or that whatever that power is, which is beyond, which is better than me, which I want to be. Okay, so we finish music now. Music helps us to do that most easily.
Let's take a short break, Gowri.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in, shall we say 15 minutes, Gowri?
As long as you want, or as short as you want.
I think let's take 15 minutes. It was a very inspiring session. So let's close and let's take 15 minutes. It's now 11:15. We'll come back at 11:30. Those of you who come back a little earlier, if you have questions, please put them in the chat, and I will curate them for Gowri to answer before Gowri closes for the day. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Gowri. We're waiting to hear the ending.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. We'll start in a couple of minutes.
I've invited anyone to ask questions. So if anybody has a question, please feel free to put it into the chat. And if we can't answer all of them, then definitely we will. I will ask Gowri to answer a few before she concludes today's workshop. Gowri, can I begin with a question?
Yes.
You said that you feel that music is the most bonding art. It's the most powerful art form. Can you explain that?
Actually, I don't know if I can explain that really, because I have no answers, but I can only tell you what I think. I think music, the response through your ears is more instinctive than everything else, perhaps. More than the touch or what you see or what you... if you have seen people who cannot see but can hear, visually challenged, but they can hear. Such people seem to have their instincts more developed. And this is true with any kind of disadvantage, I agree. But this is what I have observed. The people who can hear through their ears, I think people apprehend the world in a way that is very different and very, see, because when you touch, you're still seeing. When you taste, you're still seeing. When you smell, you're still seeing. But when you hear, you forget about what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Your eyes may be open and you may be able to see, you may not be blind, but what you hear is something that completely takes over. I give you a small example of how this works. My daughter was in the US for 15 years, and at that time, this film called The English Patient was released. So she went to see it because all of us are admirers of the writer. So she went to see the film, and then, it's in the Middle East, and suddenly she heard the call to prayer, the azan from the mosque, which is part of the Middle Eastern world, okay? It is a mosque. She said she didn't know what happened to her. She was almost asleep in the seat because she'd be very tired after a whole day of working in the university. She was almost asleep when suddenly this thing shook her away, and then took her to a different world. And she thought she was back in India, in Madras, in Kottivakam, and listening to the azan from the mosque nearby, with which we all used to wake up. She was overcome, she says, by such a sense of nostalgia that she had to get up from the theater, go out to the foyer and sit there for a little while to collect herself and bring herself back. She was overcome by a physical sense of homesickness. And this is only one example. It's just the azan that she heard, the call to prayer in a mosque. It reminded her of home. And we are not Muslims. It just so happened that we had a mosque close to our house and we used to hear it in the morning. So I've heard many people talk to me about the impact of the sounds that they hear. And as a journalist working for The Hindu, I've interviewed people of all kinds, from very, very ordinary, there's no one who's ordinary, but people who are disadvantaged people to highly privileged people. And in many of them talk about the impact of something that they heard. And you'll also notice that when we talk about something really important, we close our eyes and we just listen to people who are listening to music, because that seems to be, the ear seems to be an organ which has a life of its own. That's a long answer and maybe not an answer at all.
I think that it's the beginning of a conversation. We have a question which leads us to think about something. This is an era of sending children to music classes, sending children to painting classes, and parents think that that's a way of introducing the children to music and painting and art and learning how to paint for themselves, sending them to a class. But in this, what you seem to project in this workshop was very different from that sort of send them to class and let them learn from a teacher. It seems to be much more about response to art. So
yes.
I think that what one of them has asked is, how do you introduce the world of culture to youngsters today, considering that it's so vast and we are in a multimedia world? What is that? How can we do it? How can we make them so sensitive?
I don't underestimate the challenges at all. I don't underestimate them at all. But like I said right at the beginning, I think it has to do with your own response. If you respond to something very, very deeply, very profoundly, in a very primal way, I think you will communicate it to the children. Because when you are talking about, I was just talking about it the other day. When you teach history, for instance, if you show the paintings of that era, you're teaching Mughal history, you show a picture of Aurangzeb and you show a picture of Dara Shikoh. The very paintings will tell you what kind of people they are, and tell them a little bit about the painting there. Don't take it out as a separate thing that you have to teach. Your art education has to go with whatever you're teaching in class. I think it might be a good idea to have some invest for schools and teachers to invest. Today, copying scanning, copying, printing, all those things have become so cheap, just decide that every month you're going to have 2 paintings, one, once in 15 days, distribute it to class, discuss it, I think that is what, I'm not a teacher in a school, so I can't really, but I've been a mother, so I can't really explain this. But I can give a small example. Last year, by accident, I did 30 stories, narrating 30 stories for children in a summer camp in Chicago. And I had to do it virtually, of course. And one of the stories I told them was a story about the column. It was a story, but it was about column drawings. And I also sent them some line drawings of columns, thinking that they will color them. Okay? None of the children colored those things, but so many of them. I have a photograph somewhere of an African-American child. I believe the mother couldn't find her in the house in the morning, so she went down to the building, and she saw us sitting in the curb outside the building in Midtown Chicago, mind you, okay, and drawing a column outside, on the pavement, with colored chalk, So I think stories about painters, stories about musicians, stories about music and about painting, and when you're teaching your class, if it's geography, you're talking about Spain, you show a picture of the Spanish paintings and say, in this land, this artist was born and this is what he created in this land. I say he because so many artists have been men. Women have come into their own only recently. I think it's only by connecting it to whatever you're teaching every day that you can do it. And communicating your passion, let's say frenzy for it.
Right. So I think that one of the questions that were asked is just being covered. How do we develop a sense of love for these art forms? Where can we begin? We are just novices.
Sorry, did you say somebody? I just looked at it, the role of parents somewhere. I think I've already answered that. I'll just come back to you.
I think you've answered that. I just wanted to say whether go back to another question. How can we develop a sense of love for the art forms? We are just novices. How can we start? Where do we begin?
Everybody is a novice. Nobody is born knowing things, right? I give a small example. When I was working in the Hindu, suddenly, I was writing on many things, many different things, particularly music and dance and literature. That's my background. Suddenly, they decided that I was going to be the film critic and said, can you go to the International Film Festival and cover it? I knew nothing about cinema. Okay, I hardly saw films when I was young. And about international cinema, my knowledge was zero. Okay, so I just went and I asked a lot of people there to help me. I looked up stuff, I read a lot. The first film festival I visited was just a blur of things. And of course, my journalistic training enabled me to write something sounding as if I knew everything. That's what we learn as journalists. You know nothing, but you have to sound as if you're the ultimate authority. But that's only clever writing. But I joined a course in film appreciation for about 4 weeks. And I invested in that because they said that's what you're going to do. And then I started seeing films, and then I did become a film critic. I was even elected to an international body of film critics called the FIPRESCI. So anything and this was in midlife, I was not no spring chicken at that time. So, and now films are a passion for me, absolute passion. So I think you can develop an interest. I can't really answer this, it's not for everyone. I cannot give a general answer, but I think it is possible. Reading is very simple. We can all read. Start by reading books that you like. Don't start reading, the classics thinking I'm going to become a great book lover of classics, because you will find it boring if you're not a reader. Okay? Read things that you enjoy. And then step by step, you can go on to other things, right? So it is with music, you just go and listen to the kind of things that you like first, and then move on step by step. Now, I don't think it's impossible. There are also courses, online courses. Google is always there. You can learn easily.
Thank you. I think that we are all overwhelmed by what we heard this morning, by your interest and by your passion and all that you presented, Gowri.
I'm 70 years old, Ruku. I've had time to learn all these things.
Yeah. So we invite you now, I think, Gowri, to complete and conclude with all the things that it's been so inspiring to hear you. So I think that we don't have many questions. So we invite you to continue and finish your session.
I really wanted to talk about poetry, but there wasn't really any time. That's my first love. And everything else comes second. Reading is my first love. I tell you why reading is the most challenging thing. This is also my own interpretation. Okay? See, when you see a painting, or you can see it with your eyes, one sense. Okay, you have sculpture. Again, you have the dimensions. You can even touch a sculpture. Okay, and you can smell food. You know, now food is also an art, right? So you can smell food, and you can hear music. So all your senses are engaged in appreciating music and, you know, paintings and so on. But when it comes to the written word, it's not a sensory experience, because what you read, they're just white paper and some black symbols on it, right? When you're looking at it and reading it, is that what, are you seeing the poem? Are you smelling it? Are you touching it? Are you tasting it? Are you hearing it? They're just symbols. Now you translate those symbols into sound, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. So it requires a higher level of, a different level, a different kind of, it's a non-sensory experience. You're creating your senses. Am I making sense? You're creating all these, the sound, taste, smell, everything you are creating from these black letters on the white page. You're not seeing anything. Nothing is helping you. So if it has to come from here. You can't depend on a painting to tell you what it is. Even if it's a complicated modern painting, it's still there. The colors are there. The shapes are there. Sculpture, you can touch it. You know, but poems, what can you do? I mean, it's actually extrasensory, but you convert them into your sensuous experiences of your senses. So there's a missing step there which you have to fill in. So it means your participation, I feel, in reading is greater than painters and musicians will come and strangle me if they hear me say this. But this is my personal experience. I thought I'd read a poem about, what kind of poems do you think I should read? I have time for 2 short ones, I think. What can I read? I can't really think of anything right away. Shall we do something funny? Because I'm so tired of all the serious stuff. This is a poem. Let me do a translate. I'll do an Indian poem, okay? A Telugu poem which is translated. And this is by a poet called Pattabhi. And Pattabhi is a very famous, well-established poet. He was also a filmmaker. He made some very great art films which won national awards and so on. Pattabhi Ramaya. So I will read his poem now, which I think doesn't need any explanation. That's why I'm going to read it. Sita was my classmate, says Pattabhi. This is the first line. Sita was my classmate. The title of the poem is Sita. Sita was my classmate. She and I pored over the Ramayana, the great new work of Satyanarayana. Satyanarayana was a Telugu poet who rewrote the Ramayana for modern readers. When we finished, I asked her, looking at her thoughtful eyes, you listen to the whole story. We followed Rama with the swiftness of poetry into the wilderness of ancient time. We followed Rama with the swiftness of poetry into the wilderness of ancient time. We met him, went to the forest with him. We saw him kill Vali from behind the tree and test his wife by fire. Now tell me, do you really want to live like Sita, the wife of the hero, Rama? When she heard me, Sita said, Hey, Sita is the very epitome of Indian womanhood. It's a dream having the good fortune to live like her. But even if I should want to be Sita, I would never want to be Rama's wife. Tell me, would you ever want to be Rama yourself? Why would I? When you don't want to be Rama's wife, my desire, rather, is to become Ravana. With all my 10 mouths, I will kiss your lips, your face. I will bind you with the gaze of my 20 eyes. I will press you to my chest with 20 strong arms and make you one with me in one embrace. Now, Sita is my wife. That's the first poem. The second one is Patabi, by the way, has written some very serious poems. This is one of those things that this one I like very much. It's by a poet called Patrick Kavanagh, a modern poet, and he says, most poems are about lovers and about nature and about sorrows and about miseries, but this one is about the father. That's why I chose this. Every old man I see reminds me of my father. When he had fallen in love with death, one time when sheaves were gathered. So the father is dead. And so after the father dies, that's what is interesting. After the father's death, he sees the father everywhere, in everyone, every old man. The man I saw in Gardner Street stumble on the curb was one. He stared at me half-eyed. I might have been his son. And I remember the musician faltering over his fiddle in Bayswater, London. He too set me the riddle. Every old man I see in October-colored weather seems to say to me, I was once your father. I really like this. Do we have time for one more, Rupu? Yes? Okay. This is about reading. So I think I'll, and there are two very short poems that I read. They're by Polish poets. I returned to you years later, gray and lovely city, unchanging city, buried in the waters of the past. I'm no longer the student of philosophy, poetry, and curiosity. I'm not the young poet who wrote too many lines. Let's just look at it once again. I returned to you years later, gray and lovely city. Unchanging, the city has remained unchanged, buried in the waters of the past. I think what is nice about this poem is that it creates images one on top of the other to plunge you into that world. I'm no longer a student of philosophy, poetry, and curiosity. I'm not the young poet who wrote too many lines and wandered in the maze of narrow streets and illusions. The sovereign of clocks and shadows has touched my brow with his hand. Who's the sovereign of clocks and shadows? Time, right? Has touched my brow. The sovereign of clocks and shadows has touched my brow with his hand. But still, I'm guided by a star, by brightness, and only brightness. Only brightness can undo or save me. So what is this brightness? You can see, I like poems like this because, they leave you to imagine what that brightness is. The brightness is what? It's aspiration, I think. The brightness of thoughts, the brightness of intelligence, the brightness of your curiosity being sparked. Though he says he's left it behind, but he says that only brightness can save him. The last one is, and yet the books. That's the title of the book, and this is written by Mills, who was a very famous Czeslaw, I can't pronounce his name, Czeslaw, Czeslaw, Milosz. He was a very famous Polish poet. And he has himself translated it. So you can see it as a more or less original poem. And yet, the books will be there on the shelves, separate beings that appeared once, still wet as shining chestnuts under a tree in autumn, and touched, coddled, began to live. Look at the way he looks at books. Books are like, wet little things that you pick out of nowhere. And then you caress them, you coddle them, you hug them, you make much of them, you indulge them, and then they begin to live. So that's how the stories get into you when you go on and on and on, plunging yourself into the world of books. And touched, coddled, begin to live. In spite of fires on the horizon, castles blown up, tribes on the march, planets in motion. So what are these things? In spite of the fires in the horizon, all the dangers and the disasters that threaten us, castles blown up, all our dreams are shattered, tribes on the march, immigrants, people have to leave their places, planets in motion. Things are moving, you have no control over them. So the books continue to live on in spite of all the changes and disasters and threats that happen in the world, that menace you from the world outside. The books are still there. We are, they said, even as their pages were being torn out, or a buzzing flame licked away their letters. So much more durable than we are, whose frail warmth cools down with memory, disperses and perishes. These lines are important because we continue to live on, even though they are torn and burnt. That's what happens in any dictatorship, The first thing they do is to attack books. They prevent you from reading books, they confiscate books, they ban books, they prevent you from educating yourself. That's the first thing that happens, We still are, say the books. The knowledge is still there, even though the pages are torn and they're burnt up. And then I imagine the earth when I am no more. Nothing happens, no loss. It's still a strange pageant. Women's dresses, dewy lilacs, a song in the valley. Yet the books will be there on the shelves, well born, derived from people, but also from radiance, heights. Says the books are born of people. People write them, people imagine them, people actually work and publish them. But where do the books come from? They don't come because of human effort alone. They come from somewhere else. They come from the heights, and they come from radiance. They come from knowledge. We know that radiance, light, knowledge, heights, all these things suggest the upward movement of humanity towards the light. So where does that light come from? That light comes from above, from beyond your brain, but they're enshrined in the books to kindle that fire once again in you. No amount of destruction can destroy learning. No amount of destruction can destroy poetry. No amount of destruction and oppression can destroy literature. It's always there, a shining light and a beacon to each and every one of us.